Hi, how to become more secure at your work. Today I'm going to talk you through examples how I used to show up at my workplace and how a secure me would handle it nowadays. Today's episode is for the high achieving babes who are secretly overthinking everything at work with their colleagues, who've got the degrees, the ambition, the drive, but under the surface, you're stuck in your head, questioning yourself, playing yourself down, avoiding the conversations, not speaking up, playing small, and you don't even realize it, how deep it goes. And it might be your anxious attachment making your work feel so much harder than it needs to be, your relationships and everything else that comes with it. Let's talk about something that we don't discuss often, and I have never really heard anyone else talking about this in detail. In relationships, anxious attachment comes from fear of losing your partner at the root cause. You're worrying that you're not good enough, that people will leave. But at work, it's about financial security as well. It's belonging and your identity. You're downplaying yourself, you're worrying that you're not good enough, that you're too much, and this can hugely, massively impact your relationships, your anxiety level, and even your income. The fear of losing your job as well isn't just about the job, it's about survival deep down. And that brings out intense anxiety that gets masked as being dedicated. And it's literally in a survival instinct as well if you overgive and overdo and work becomes your life. But there's a way to feel safer and to set boundaries and to show up from a more grounded and authentic way at work without having to be in survival state all the time and to really feel like you belong as well, maybe even. There's a way to be valued without sacrificing yourself, without chasing the approval, without feeling anxious of making a typo, or let's go into the details in a second, but yeah. Let me take you back for a second. Disclaimer, I'm not a therapist or a doctor. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or heal any mental health condition. If you're in an abusive relationship or dealing with severe mental health challenges, always seek professional advice. So let's talk about my life before I healed my anxious attachment style and before I was a relationship coach. So when I created my earned secure attachment style, I wasn't in an office job in a 9-to-5 anymore. Let me paint you a picture. So I was in quality control in fashion. So I used to work as a garment technologist in the luxury fashion space. For example, also doing quality control, checking luxury dresses for, brands like Earl Murray, who was, doing dresses for celebrities like Victoria Beckham, Dita Van Teese, Meghan Markle, and the list goes on. And it sounds very glamorous, right? And it's everyone's girl's dream to work in fashion and all of these things, but not when you're terrified of confrontation, being insecure deep down. And I had to inspect lots of garments from the factories and then give them feedback, like sometimes rejecting the batches, telling them what they need to improve before it goes into production. Because the garments you see on the runways, it's a one-off collection and then you get ready to produce them. So on criticizing someone's work, because I was in the factory, I saw the people who sold the garments, was very hard for myself, because if you have an anxious attachment style, rejection is one of your biggest fears. And then rejecting someone else's work felt extremely personal for me on that level, especially if then the factory owner, they're pushing hard back on you and they're trying to discuss with you how their garments are perfect and they're approved for production and they can't delay the deadlines. And then you have to have this back and forth with them and confrontation and being sticking to your words was very hard for me. So every time when I had to quality control and found mistakes, I was like completely anxious and spiraling and didn't want to go to the factories and felt literally physically sick. I didn't want to be the bad one who rejects their work and who makes them feel like anything less than they deserve, that they did an amazing job. But that shame cycle was my anxious attachment style actually screaming. I didn't know that at that time that my anxious attachment style was driving so much of my emotions and my thoughts and my actions at that time as well in my workplace, not just in my friendships and like romantic relationships. So let's talk about lots of ways how my anxious attachment style else showed up in my workplace so you can relate to me perhaps in some way, and then realize how an anxious person shows up and then how a secure person actually shows up, to really visualize that and become more and more her or him or them. Because if I had awareness of that, things could have been so different. So let me run through you with 10 before and after examples. So one thing I did was overanalyzing people's faces and their tones. Anxious me was like, she barely smiled at you. Look at her, how angry she looks at you. She doesn't like you. And she probably thinks I'm annoying and dumb. Overanalyze for hours why this person wouldn't like me, how I need to say things because this person reacts in a weird way to me because they're not overly warm. I was replaying in my mind the same exact tone, facial expression, micro movements when they were just greeting me or were not greeting me. There was a girl who I smiled at and said hi whenever I saw her, as you would do with a normal person, and she literally just ignored me. And it felt so triggering for me. And now secure me is like, I don't know what's going on for her or that person or my colleague, but I don't need to make this mean anything about me. I don't need to overthink and worry. I don't need to think I'm not good enough or whatever. I don't need to be friends with everyone. And I don't need to think it's also about me. Maybe they just have a resting bitch face. Who knows what's going on? But I don't have to take it personal. I don't have to take it as a sign of rejection. And even if they're rejecting me as a person, I don't need their approval. Especially if anyone doesn't approve of me, that's good for them. I don't need to be friends with them. But often we kind of chase people's approval, especially if someone doesn't like you, and we want to be liked by everyone. And anxious attachment style fears rejection and abandonment the most, even if it's by people you don't even want to be friends with. So secure attachment style, however, gives people the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't jump to self-blame as a default. It tolerates uncertainty without getting stuck in our heads. So try this. Ask yourself, what else could be true here in this moment? Or would I think this way if I felt secure? What would the most confident, secure version of myself think and feel? Or if you can't imagine this, think about someone else, like a role model, and how would they think and react and move? Would they just overthink about this, or would they just be unbothered and move through the day without care in the world? I was avoiding the office kitchen like it was hot lava. In my previous job, and we had this like large, huge kitchen with this huge table in the middle and all of these colorful chairs. Another fashion company I was working with. And when some of my colleagues, my friends were around and I was around like strangers, or not strangers, but colleagues I was hardly talking with, I felt extremely insecure. I was like, okay, God, now have to keep small talk with them. I don't know what to say. What I'm going to ask them? Okay, I'm going to ask them about the weekend. Okay, great. And then when this question was done, felt very awkward. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I just felt like I just suck in conversations. I wanted connection so badly, but not like surface level conversations. Just, felt secure with people who I already connected with because I knew with something in common. With strangers, I didn't know anything about them and I didn't know how to ask the right question. So as an introvert, this felt very hard for me. I wanted to connect with them, but I feared rejection at the same time. So my anxious attachment style was craving closeness, but feared getting it wrong somehow, being awkward, or making silence mean something weird and strange. And we associate visibility with danger, and learning it's better to hide and stay in secret somewhere, being on your desk, even pretending to work, or just quickly eat your lunch, which felt more safer rather than putting yourself out there. So the secure me would now, if I would be in the same situation again, which I'm not because I'm, have my own business now, but I would say hi, I would grab a coffee, and I would have already built enough rapport to know how to have a conversation first of all. I would not feel super awkward even if there's silence. I'm not going to panic over making this mean anything weird about us or about me. Secure people, they don't perform for connection or pretend someone they are not. They trust their presence is enough. They don't overly identify with awkward moments as well. And if you're becoming securely attached and you really struggle with communication like I used to, you can literally practice this. Anything someone else has is literally a skill. So you can learn to have a conversation. Like if someone asks about the weekend, always back off the thing what they just said. If they share information, then it's your turn to feed them information as well. So this conversation is not dying off. But all of these things is like a topic for another time. It's important just to tell yourself, you know what, it's okay to be who you are, and there can be silence. You don't have to talk with everyone in the kitchen. It's completely okay. And you can ask yourself, like, what would it feel like to take up just 1% more space today? Could I let a quiet moment just be without judging it, without panicking, and just breathing through it? And 3, I used to hate after work events. Sometimes it was fine when my friends were there, colleagues turned into friends over time. But when I was in a room with a lot of people from different departments who I didn't know that well, I was like panicking, and inside I was like sweating. And often in the end I would go, because how many times can you say no to something or make up an excuse or lie? And in the end, if someone trying to convince you and you're as an people pleaser, you just say yes and then just go to the thing. And I would scan the room for safety. Who could I cling to? Where's my friends? Where's the colleagues I can connect with? And then obsess over every conversation afterwards and beat myself up for what I said or what I did wrong or how I was awkward. And was that too much? Did I overshare? Did I say anything weird? Did I sound silly? An anxious attachment style reacts to this because we feel responsible for how we were perceived. We associate social rejection with unworthiness and use overanalyzing things as like a false control thing. And now the secure me, I would ask myself, do I actually want to go? Not do I have to go, or what do other people think if I say no, or what lie can I come up with? I literally ask myself, what do I actually want? And if I don't know this, I'm going to literally be honest and say, I'm not exactly sure. Give me a few minutes or I will let you know by the end of the day. And if people are trying to convince me, I'm not going to let them, because in the end, if I don't feel like it, if I just feel like I need space, or in the end, I'm an introvert. An introvert, they get their energy from being alone or around people who they can really just be themselves with. And going for things like after work events with a lot of strangers can be very stressful. I would stay grounded now in who I am, and I wouldn't perform. Secure people listen to their capacity, not people please. They feel worthy with or without needing the validation. They trust their presence even when things feel awkward, and they are able to say no or to be honest without having to people please or lie. So ask yourself, what would enough looks like for me tonight? What could I say to set a boundary, to maybe decline an offer without panicking completely? Maybe I don't say no, maybe I don't lie and make up an excuse, but what feels a little bit more comfortable for me? And how can I maybe not over-explain myself when I cancel an event? And am I trying to prove something, or am I just trying to connect? 4. I used to overthink tiny mistakes or feedback and criticism a lot. So anxious me, I would think like one wrong date in an email or like a spelling error would like send me into like a shame cycle. This is all I am writing in English, which is my second language, which I can be very proud of. Second of all, I developed chronic migraines at some point because of which I'm pretty sure it all was based on my anxious attachment style and over always worrying and stressing and everything a few years back. So I went through a period where I had migraines and it impacted strongly my vision, and I was like seeing lots of stars all the time. And even after that period, after I got on like a permanent medication, I was still struggling with seeing things and reading and writing out things. That's why even nowadays, I don't like writing long emails or anything like this. I use a speech tool. I use even the tool on ChatGPT to express myself and then just say, hey, write exactly what I just said, just in text form. Because writing something with my eyes, they still go fuzzy a little bit. It's hard to explain. And I used to be extremely insecure about this, get triggered when people pointed this out and even sometimes laughed at me. It wasn't even that it was that many spelling errors, but it was sometimes. And now I'm saying, you know what, it matters more what I say and how I say it. It's normal to make mistakes, but I'm always saying it's much more important that I help people over like one spelling mistake every, I don't know, a couple of pages. So why do we do this? As an anxious attachment style, we tie worth to perfection. Our nervous system sees correction as a rejection, as criticism, right? And we take it very personal. We internalize our feedback and prove that we are not enough. And even if someone tells you, hey, you know what, I love the email, how you wrote this, but there's this quick little thing here, you should improve next time. You're always focusing on the negative things someone tells you, no matter if they told you just 10 positive things. So as someone with an insecure attachment style now, I know that it's completely normal to make mistakes. I actually hear the positive now as well. I don't take criticism as a personal attack. I take feedback as data, not as a verdict on who I am. And secure attachment separates identity from performance. And I trust that being imperfect doesn't make you unlovable or is not dangerous. So what if that one critique wasn't personal, but it's just normal part of learning? And how much credit are you actually giving to all of the positive things you have received from them versus the one negative thing you have received? And again, even if they say things out of spite, you have to protect your energy. By the way, a quick note, if you want to dive deeper in any of these topics, if you want to learn to stop obsessing over what's going on in your relationship with your partner, I have like 2 courses available at the moment, which I'm going to link down below in the attachment library. One is about your text anxiety, if you're obsessively always glued on your phone, worrying about what your partner's up to, trying to chase their reassurance, trying to get them to reply back to you faster, trying to get them to call you back more often, are always glued to your phone, and trying to get them to change how they react to you. This course is for you, because in the end we can't change how they respond to you. We can only work on ourselves and our anxiety, because it's all based on our attachment styles, and we can't change someone else's attachment style. We can only change our attachment style. Then this course is for you. However, if you're generally worrying and overthinking your relationships, friendships, and are always in your head about the future of your relationship, worrying about your partner's going to leave you, worrying about you're not good enough, then I have a course on this, on how to stop worrying about your relationship with your avoidant partner in just 4 steps. And if you're actually serious and want to heal your anxious attachment style, create an earned secure attachment style, then check out how to work with me one-on-one. I have coaching offers like a 4 and an 8-month coaching container to really go deep and get coaching sessions with me bi-weekly. You can jump on a free call with me just to get to know me, and I can get you all the details. Also, free resources are in the attachment library, so check it out, and let's continue. 5. Another thing I've noticed in the workplace about me being anxious attached was I was avoiding conflict or any kind of kerfuffle like it's poison. This is what I would rather do. I would rather do 3 times the workload, or lie, or call out something that wasn't okay. I would panic if someone seems disappointed, and I would sugarcoat feedback until it meant nothing. Why? Because anxious attachment style avoids conflict, because conflict equals danger. It means abandonment in the end. We equate conflict with abandonment because we are taught don't rock the boat, because it means safety, if you play small, and confuse peacekeeping with connection. But the secure me nowadays knows, I can say what I need without knowing it's going to mean I'm going to lose my job or the connection or the colleagues, or I'm not going to get a pay rise or any of this. I can say what's real with still being kind and assertive and clear. I know I can be honest and still be loved. Secure people see boundaries as bridges and not as a wall. Secure people don't sacrifice themselves to keep the peace. They believe healthy relationships can handle the truth. Questions you can ask yourself are, where am I shrinking myself to avoid conflict? What is the biggest thing that can actually happen when I speak my truth, more gradually, bit by bit? And what would clear and kind sound like in this specific conversation? And 6, I was hiding my ideas in meetings. My anxious attachment style would be like, I would rehearse what I wanted to say 20 times and then not say it. And then someone else said it. And I would feel invisible again. I would be mad at myself and build up the resentment towards myself. We fear being seen as wrong more than not being seen, because we've been shamed before and we crave approval over authenticity. So now with the earned secure attachment style, I would share things even if they're imperfect. Even if I'm maybe really anxious, I would still say the thing. I would still do the thing. I trust that value isn't performance, it's about presence. And you don't have to say everything, you don't have to take the big leap, but what is one little thing you can say to move the needle more forward? And secure people, express without over managing the response. Like they speak to share and not to control the outcome. They allow their voice to evolve in the room, and they're completely okay with someone disagreeing with you. And ask yourself, what would change if I trusted that my observations are valuable, whether or not they are imperfect? What is possible for me if I start sharing my ideas and my creativity? 7, of course, I would people please even to the bosses. So anxious me would skip lunches and pretend I would be okay taking on all the workload. That was really in my really anxious phases at the beginning when I took on the first job roles. I stayed late so no one would think I was lazy. Felt really resentful AF. And I would do all of the things just to prove I was the best of the best, because I was overcompensating that I wasn't good enough. We link approval with safety, fear of rejection from authority as emotional danger, and ignore our needs to stay likable. Nowadays, I would ask for what I need. I would be realistic with timelines. Even if I'm now self-employed, even if I'm doing my own thing, I would not hustle. When I feel tired or actually am sick, I'm actually resting. And when I feel excited or energized and really want to do things, I'm going to do things. So I also trust that sometimes less is doing much better sometimes, and going for a walk sometimes during the day, even though I really want to work, I know it's extremely important for my health. So I kind of force myself to do it. And then it's actually when I have the best ideas, because then when you detach from the situation and the outcome and the moment, you're feeling regulated, you're connected to nature. When you walk, you get all of the creative juices flowing. So what boundaries would actually help you to thrive well at work? What would happen if you would wait just 1 hour longer to respond to an email? Who taught you that your availability equals your value, and it's dangerous to put yourself first? And 8, using gossip as a tool to feel closer to colleagues. That's a big one. I'm actually not doing this anymore. I hate gossip or judging people, but I used to do this years and years ago. So, which is completely normal. I'm not judging you for doing that, but I used to do this for myself, and it feels so much better if you are not involved in any of this drama anymore. So bonding with coworkers by complaining about other people or laughing about how they show up or what they said or what they do is not the energy I want to bring into work or into my life, and does not make me feel good deep down. And in the end, I often worry what they would actually say about my back, why we, lean on gossip. We confuse drama often with intimacy. We fear that if we speak up and say that we don't want to be involved in this kind of gossip and we exclude ourselves, that then we are abandoned from this group and that we don't belong to them. And standing up for ourselves, for our values, feels very dangerous. And we rather be in this situation and engage, and because it's interesting and it's bonding. But in the end, is this really who you want to be? I don't anymore. Gossip and judgment and laughing about people is not something I want to be anymore or do anymore. So nowadays I have either direct conversations with them that I'd rather not want to engage in this kind of thing and it doesn't really feel good. I just walk away from the situation, or if people gossip about people which is actually mean and hurtful, where I think, okay, this is not fair, I would actually stand up for that person. I grew up with being bullied at school and always felt very insecure and never really fitted in. So bullying is something that's absolutely not okay, and I extremely passionate about standing up for people, especially who getting treated like crap. So secure people, they don't need sides to feel safe. Also secure people in general, they hold connection through truth and not shared out courage. Or secure people don't use triangulation as a tool. So ask yourself, am I venting to connect or to control how I'm seen? What would a secure version of me think, act, and what would she say in this moment? Am I just engaging in these behaviors because it's actually safe, or because I actually want to and because it aligns with my values? And of course, the good old one, how do I want to be treated in this situation? And then align your actions with it. And 9, staying small out of fear. So anxious me didn't apply for promotions unless I was 200% qualified and certain I would get it. And I would completely practice beforehand what I'm going to say, write like pages of notes, rehearses with my colleagues, with myself, and then completely downplayed myself in the conversation. I watched hours of YouTube videos on how to have a conversation with your boss about pay rises and completely ignored all of this. And in the end, when I actually had the courage to speak up, I was like so anxious about it. And I often told myself I wasn't ready yet because I felt terrified of getting rejected and being told I wasn't good enough, I wasn't ready. And then after my boss told me all of the amazing things about me and then this one negative thing, I was overthinking for weeks about this one negative critic I was getting. And we believe rejection confirms we are unlovable, or we need to perform harder to convince other people of our worth and that we are good enough. And we fear shame more than growth. This has huge consequences for your growth, for your wealth, for moving up, for getting pay rises, for you always play small and keep small just out of fear, and that feels never good. The secure me nowadays wouldn't have to talk about any pay rises anymore because I'm again my own boss, but at least I know I could have a conversation. I would still probably feel anxious and scared and terrified, which I think is completely normal. But I also know that I can feel the emotion and it's going to be okay anyway, no matter if it's a yes or a no or 2% or 5%, I can still hold my ground and not make it mean anything about myself. Secure people seek feedback and not perfection, and they believe in progress over performance. And if they don't get anything after a while, they know they can get the chances somewhere else, and they don't believe in themselves. So ask yourself this: if I trusted rejection didn't define me, what would I reach for? And what story am I telling myself about what I deserve? And is it true? And 10, I noticed I was sacrificing myself without getting recognition for it or anything in return. So in my later jobs, I started noticing a pattern. The more you say yes to everything, the more you get pushed around and being used. Companies are not evil, but they have one primarily goal: to maximize the output while minimizing the cost. That's just business. So I had this colleague once who was the definition of anxious attachment style at work. She took on more and more projects, outshining everyone, trying to be the star, worked longer hours than everyone and put herself last every single time. She never got the holidays she wanted and all of this stuff. So she was convinced that this sacrifice would lead to recognition, promotion, security, and all of the things in the end. So where did this lead? Our company in the end shut down. She never got the promotion or recognition. Even before that happened, she never got the holiday she requested because she was then such a valuable part of the company. And all of these extra hours, all those missed family dinners, all of those yes moments when her body was screaming no, they didn't buy her any additional security, validation, or recognition. She was devastated in the end, and not just about losing her job, but about all she had given up for was a false sense of approval and safety and self-worth. And meanwhile, I'd started becoming more and more secure, setting clear boundaries, taking my full lunch break, saying I can deliver this by this time, instead of always saying yes to everything, instead of sacrificing my own health. And this was rocking the boat, and people were gossiping about me, and that made me feel uncomfortable in the end. However, my inner peace was that I was being more authentic to myself and was able to stand up for myself, and it felt so much better than sacrificing myself and not getting anything out of it in the end, and just self-abandoning myself in the process. Secure people understand that true security comes from within, not from external validation, no matter if it's work or the partner's reassurance or the promotion or any of this. So ask yourself, what would happen if you gave 10% less and took care of yourself 10% more? Why do you might think it's selfish to prioritize yourself and not work or your colleagues or your boss or other people? And then challenge this belief. How is the fear of financial insecurity driving your workplace behaviors? Anxious at work can be so draining, and it's completely normal, but nobody really talks about this, and I think it's so important. There's so many more examples I could have given. It's not about being too sensitive, too needy, too selfish, or whatever, too insecure. It's about old strategies your nervous system has built in to keep you safe, to keep you from hurt in places where love felt earned and not given. And let's be honest, work triggers these patterns so intensively because it ties to financial security as well. The fear of rejection isn't just emotional, it's also feels like a threat to our security. But here's what I've learned. Burning out what makes you more secure, hiding your needs won't make you more valuable. And sacrificing well-being won't guarantee the paycheck any more than boundaries will threaten it. So how do you shift? It's not about confidence, it's about inner safety. It's not about faking it, it's about rewiring the reality. It's not about working harder, it's about trusting your worth beyond your output and the actions you do. And you don't need to do this all at once, trust me. It took me as well micro mini actions to do this. Start with 1% more trust in your voice. 1% more belief that you belong, even if you're quiet, even if you make mistakes. 1% more courage to set a boundary that honors your well-being. You are safe to show up. You are worthy without the hustle, and your secure self is already in you, waiting to be heard and seen and recognized. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next episode. Let me know on YouTube what was your favorite part, like where can you see yourself and what topics you want to hear more about. Check out my free resources like journaling, prompts, guides, cheat sheets in the free attachment library below. Again, this is where you also find my courses and how to connect with me if you want to heal your anxious attachment style. So far, I'll see you in the next episode. Lots of love, Yula. Bye bye. P.S. Change in your relationship starts with you. Thought by thought, action by action, and now episode by episode.